Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another promising session for the Hearth Within. Today we are here to celebrate a very, very special book by a very special friend, Nabanita Sengupta's recent collection of poems, which is also incidentally her first single debut collection, In-Between Selves, has just been published. Fresh from the oven, we are very, very grateful that the book is in the world and that we have a fabulous panel of poets and speakers to celebrate the book, to talk about it, and to present a showcase of the wonderful poems that the book contains. I'm very, very grateful to Dominica for trusting the Hearth Within. And to formally welcome our guests, I would like to invite Professor Jaideep Sarangi. Jaideep sir, over to you.
Good evening. Good evening, all the panelists, the poet herself, and of course, the heart of the heart within Bashudhar. It is two wrinkled hands held tight. I have not read Nabonita's poetry before with so much intensity, but as soon as I started reading Nabonita's maiden collection, single collection, I think it is like, it's a beautiful journey that begins with this collection and 41 poems, I think, and all are so poignantly written and different aspects, starting with Devi to pride. So, journey from Devi to pride is, of course, is a journey of with the wings of confidence and hope. And some of the poems are really very touching and touched me and moved me in many ways. Suppose a poem that I can easily remember, that is, reading or spaces, seeking, untold stories, faith, nibbling words, self, and all these shunya, faith. These poems have some kind of the promise of a journey of a poet who will be writing more into it, into the genre, and of course, who is teaching beautiful images and idioms to perfection. What I like in this collection is the choice of words in the mosaic of the poesy, like, and the mother ponders, can the prodigal return? Like the tree of consciousness, rooted, quiet, I felt more alive. There is always a promise in Nabonita. And another aspect of her painting collection is that her relation with some of the important recurring images of some renowned poets, like night, like stars, like art, and like faith, waiting. Of course, these are very recurrent in Indian English prominent poets and poets of prominence. And Nabanita's journey is very singular and very significant. And I say that, this particular volume is, of course, maybe her maiden collection, but many more to follow. And Nabanita should write more. And she translates, she writes more in prose. I think now onwards she will be writing more in poesy, isn't it? So I'm really touched, Nabanita. So wonderful journey with the wings of poesy, and what a wonderful panel, starting with Ashinida to all the dignified panelists who will be talking about your book today. And of course, the Heart Within is very much honored that we are launching your maiden collection. Whatever the length of Heart Within may be, but we are very fortunate to launch some of the very important books, but we are very happy with the past and the present, and of course, future we can see or we cannot see. But of course, this particular collection will always be remembered as one of the important books that we launched through Hearth Within. And thank you all panelists from different parts. And I think this book will have a great, prosperous journey ahead. Thank you all concerned who have been a great supporter of Heart Within and who had been a great supporter of Heart Within. Thank you so much. Over to Ashwani.
Thank you, Jaideep sir. Thank you very much for the warm introduction to the book. And we are indeed very glad that, Nabanita decided that In Between Selves should begin its journey here. So I'm just as going through the introduction, and Nabanita says that the 41 poems gathered here are stray thoughts from various walks of life. She says that I call them stray because they have emerged at various points of time, unannounced, uninvited, and sudden. They have often gestated in my mindscape for days before finally taking a shape, or have just leaped out at a short notice. They are my interactions with nature, my experiences as a woman, my understanding of the society, and my journey to seek love. With each of them, I leave a bit of myself on paper. I think that nothing could be more evocative of one's own poetry than this realization that you leave a bit of yourself in whatever you write. And to talk about this wonderful book, we have some very well known poets and speakers here today. And I would like to begin the book discussion by inviting Professor Ashwani Kumar, who needs no introduction. He has been teaching at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences for such a long period of time, and as a poet, as a critic, as a curator of poetry, handling Chandrabhaga Literary Festival, the Poetry Festival, for several years now. Ashwani Kumar is a name to reckon with in Indian English poetry. Over to you, Ashwani, sir.
Uh, Thank you, Vasu. I mean, a very generous Vasu has always been. And Jaideep Babu, thank you very much for having me again.
Oh, thank you. We are honored. You are
Huh,
always there.
yeah. So, and also, together we are celebrating Nabanita's, work. So that's itself is a big joy. I would like to say a few things about the book. I've seen the book, Nabanita, and before it came out as a book also, I've seen her poems, I've seen her being part of our poetry readings, etc., etc. So what I will do very briefly, I guess, I will use some of the insights of what I call philosophical literary anthropology and reflect on Navanita's debut collection. And that's what I'm going to do very briefly. And it's a kind of a short, introduction to her work. So what I wanting to say in the beginning that In Between Selves of Nabanita is a luminous testimony to the power of self-discovery, linguistic inventiveness, and enigmatic blurring of real and unreal spaces of imagination. In her own words, In Between Selves is a mesmerizing earth song, unbound, flaming, red, and a romance beyond the rim of its earthen pot. In her whimsical seasonal garden, I quote her, in her whimsical seasonal garden of desires with autumnal ripeness, scent of thumris melts into an ethereal presence of memories between dusk and darkness. Frankly sensuous and silently esoteric, Navanita is unmistakably a radiant poetic voice extending the arc of poetic imaginary and Indian English poetry. In fact, her imagistic, I emphasize, in fact, her imagistic metaphors are so dazzling, so unexpectedly intriguing that it freshens familiar language into unfamiliar, anti-Oedipal forests of Aparajita, dancing, I quote her, to the tune of some long remembered dreams and in the swaying of a Nilakantha. Like a slow rising sun suspended upon the tide of animated quietude, in her own words, as she slyly and slyly admits, her poems are mimetic and mythic journey into the inner recesses of contemporary city life, and most especially Bengali civic life with its symbolic and semiotic ruptures with past and present. I'm struck. I'm struck by her strangely creative usage of a fragmentary historiography of emotions, one that seeks to identify the moments of displacement and dislocation in our everyday lives. I also hear voices of Akka Mahadevi, Amrita Pritam, and Annie Sexton, one of my favorites from American poetry scene, landscape, in her poems and her poetic craft. And close home, like Amrita Pritam, Nabanita uses intimate afflictions as sources of her poetic experiences in public and in private too. In other words, Nabanita seeks to carve out a unique space for herself, not just explored, unexplored, and complex range of experiences rooted in a new ethical code of women-centric world in between selves. She also disrupts, I emphasize, disrupts the tone and timbre of contemporary Indian English poetry and celebrates what she calls freedom of warring tongue. In short, she speaks of a language that is composed of disruptions of primordial desire, which goes beyond standard or routine linguistic categories. That is why she speaks of women, I quote her, who know the art of togetherness and whisper stories of borders of mangroves and brickyards, or boatmen ferrying peace packages at fixed rate an hour. Unlike many poets from the younger generation of Indian English poetry, Nabanita's poems are deeply political, speaking in multiple polychromatic tongues, mimicking chaos and lawlessness. I quote her, love in the times of democracy. Like Franz Fanon, mimicry here, mimicry of ambivalence and slippages of memories in between selves, neither conceals nor hides the genealogical gauge, which, as Foucault describes it, liberates margins from the tyranny of the dominant discourses of monologous power relations. Self-admittedly, in a growing war field of languages, her body turns multilingual. I quote her, turns multilingual and lives in translated spaces of feminine agencies. In her own words, the wet, luscious body dried into expansive deserts, revealing herself in the fertile green of matured sun, is both most intimate and untranslatable terrain of sensation and suffering, and also paradoxically, our universal language of what Sigmund Freud calls collective catharsis. In this sense, body, especially the body of a woman, becomes here an insurgent site of resistance. Quote her, regurgitating with a violence that is part symbolic and part semiotic in its identity effects in the play of a power that is elusive because it hides no essence, not even itself. In other words, her poems are intense lyric experiences of real, unreal, surreal, feminist desires and dreams perforated with hauntingly inner illumination of silences. And they work in a raga-like fashion, spiraling in and around multilingual emotional notes, a carefully crafted archive of moments of strangely remembered and also dismembered experiences of self-discovery. The outcome, as I note, is a strange blend of unpredictability and musical airiness with thematic elements of spaces that are all the more intriguing for being conveyed in such apparently incongruous translational or hybrid forms of feminine defiance of what she calls phallic pillar, pampered, and revered. That is why she contests all forms of patriarchal and parochial languages and says, quite strongly and directly, I seek the language to call my own as my disobedient tongue. Here is a poetry that rings authentic, unburdened, untainted by grammatological atrocities of the uncolonized colonial natives. You can almost see Navanita behind her poems, watching the world like a sketch artist, displaying the same kind of fluid strokes as if, I quote her, Ichamati, Vidyadhari, Kalindi rivers performing mythic ballet performances. In short, Navanita is an exquisite miniaturist of mimetic experiences of daily grind of homely, unhomely life, profane or sacred. Let me also remind you that her poems are at once spiritually expansive and materially hermetic. Nothing escapes here. Everything is eliminated. There is neither Kafkaesque existential dread or nor Heideggerian despair. I notice a strangely unfamiliar Tagoresque memories of dreams of blue elephants and many horned rhinos in her childhood veranda. Nearly every poem in her debut collection of 41 poems shows that Navanita's phenomenological eyes fixes itself not so much on ordinary living and doing as on the specific act of composing poems as if they vanish like the burnt snowflakes. Thus, every poem in this volume becomes an act of poetica of its own erasure, a rare experience of what I call ontological extinction of sufferings of the world. In the end, I was struck by almost surreal quality of her poems, separating her poetic craft from the triad and the cliched worlds of words. The escape from the mundane is facilitated by an obscure portion, a golden liquor that opens up a fantastic landscape presided over by Navanita's metaphysical thirst. Once this thirst is quenched, she evokes her own extinction by miraculously shredding her fears in what she calls fragmented sunbeams in every city, every corner of her present and future. No wonder, after reading her poems, I felt a serene delirium, an unusual awakening of myself through reflected memories of my own unremembered past. This strange carnival of a waiting conch reveals the luminescent flux in which language disintegrates and reconstitutes itself in an entity that transcends what has preceded it. Thus, as she says, you, me, and us become like a new beginning arising from the eyelids of lantern in the late evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ashwani sir, for such a detailed and very, very insightful perspective on Nabanita's poems, especially when you talk about that very, very intoxicating delirium that the poems induce. We look forward to enjoying the delirium through the wonderful showcase that the poets have lined up. Thank you very much. And to talk about further aspects of the book, I would like to now invite Rajorshi Narayan Patranabis, who is a very, very well-known poet who deals, I believe, one of the very few poets from the Indian scene who's dealing with a large variety of forms. A food technologist by profession, a practicing Wiccan. Rajoshida is especially known for curating poetry and for writing a vast variety of form poems. We are very, very glad that he is here with us to share his perspectives on the book. And over to you, Rajoshida.
Thank you, Hearth Within. Thank you, Vasudhara. Thank you, Nabanita. And thank you, Shormila for not being here, because what Ashwini ji has done, and if Shormila would have spoken, I would have just said thank you very much and put myself on mute. So, as far as I am concerned, my tryst with Nabanita is actually a tongue twister. I know her pet name, so it actually disturbs me calling her Nabanita. So my tryst with Nabanita was in Delhi with a book called Three Witches Song, which Nabanita, Sudeshna, and Aparna. they had jointly written. And being a Wiccan myself, the word which automatically touches you first, it pinches you, and it forces you to go a mile to see, an extra mile to see what exactly is there. So I'm very much in sync with what Professor Ashwini Kumar has said, that yes, there is a very strong esoteric angle to what Nabanita writes, and I was not surprised by what I had seen in this particular book too. So, I mean, the whole thing of Three Witches Song was about sufferings. I'd done a detailed review of that book, wherein I had actually told them about the mind, body, and the soul that all of us we Wiccans follow. And um, after that, my twist with Nabanita's work was Chambal Returns. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong, Nabanita. The name of the book was Chambal Returns,
Revisited.
and revisited. Right. I'm sorry. Yes, Chambal Revisited. And as far as that book was concerned, the amount of study I did with that book, if I would have done it my 10th, my photograph would have definitely been on the newspaper. So, so yes, and that was my second tryst with Navanita, and this was forthcoming. I knew this was coming, but what was actually coming, I didn't know. So I'd just like to quote a few lines from what Shormila had written in the foreword, and I'm absolutely on the same page with this. There is a strong element of surprise in this eclectic collection of poems. Different themes, different spaces with blurring boundaries create an in-between space where one can repose, get up, and move on to something concrete, heart-twisting or ephemeral and fleeting. And honestly, to read this book was a pleasure for me, for the simple reason that it had myriad, and I put this word within quotes, it had myriad imageries. And again, being a Wiccan, I mean, this particular Wiccan glass comes in front of me with everything that I see and with everything that I read. Being a Wiccan myself, I personally am not in favor of uh, people speaking about or writing about feminism inspired by the West, because we on the East have an older version and a sounder version of feminism. One very small thing that I would like to read, and this is on a very light note. I hope Navanita takes it with a pinch of salt. I love your smile. And this is from this poem of fire. She was born of fire long ago. The one before her had to walk through the flames. This is the first verse. And then when we longed for company, we gained masters. We lost our grounds. Well, if writing poetry are from lessons from life, I can guarantee Mr. Dasgupta is not your master. I wouldn't go further into it, but yes. So I've actually put certain poems on my list that I would like to discuss here. Love in the Times of Democracy, if Ashwini Kumar had discussed and I am discussing, that means that this is one thing that had actually hit where it hurts most. So, and if love was like an election process chosen by secret ballot, I mean, this is absolutely a different angle to what we generally think of love. I'm very sure there are very few people. Who had actually thought of love like an election process, and I'm so glad you did it. Uh, no, sorry, Nabanita. But since we chose not to, can we still sing our own songs and celebrate the personal? This is a fabulous way to get deep into certain different imageries, wherein you accept, you reject, and then again you accept certain things. And while the poem ends on a very positive note, this is what I actually liked with most of the poems here. I've seen them not getting too murky, not getting too difficult, and not getting too much into uh, the spaces. And if I divide this book into the mind, body, and soul concept, then the mind is definitely love in the times of democracy. The body will be Pittu. And I've really loved this poem. I've loved the way you have taken a pot shot at that game that we used to, that all of us have played. All of us had played. And argue, save your intellect, win the game of Pittu. Fabulous work. Fabulous work. I would have actually uh, liked it to be a little bit more concrete, maybe, but nevertheless, very good. And another poem that I would call the soul of this book is Pride. In the rainbow lit sky, I seek my identity, my place in your society, your kingdom of intolerance. Well, tolerance, intolerance, I would not go into the political side of it. I'm again in sync with Ashwini Kumar that this has a very strong political innuendo into it. This All the poems have somehow succeeded in not being always politically correct, and I love this book for this. And this is where poets win. This is where you need to be absolutely on the wrong side. If you're on the wrong side, I would say you are a poet. And just writing poetry doesn't make you a poet. Like once Jibanananda Das had said, "Kobitto janmate hoy." The poeticism in you should be born within you. It's something that stays within you. And well, Purapuri Kobitto, the whole uh, poet. I doubt whether it was born fully in Tagore also or not. Nabanita is a kid. She's just started walking. So I see a sunlight, a huge horizon, and a huge way to walk. And I really look forward. I really look forward to what you have to offer to the world next, because from here I would only expect something uphill. And last but not the least, thank you all for calling a non-academic person within uh, I can see Navanita's face well. Calling a non-academic person to discuss a book in this whole galaxy of academics. I'm so very happy that Hearth Within is doing a fabulous job. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Rajorshida. And we did not call a non-academic, we called a very loving poet in you. And we are very grateful that you gave us a very thorough perspective on Nabanita's book, especially when you talked about the feminism in it, when you talked about the various indigenous models of feminism also that Nabanita has touched upon. And we are very grateful for this thorough coverage. We miss Sharmila Di. It would have been wonderful if she could have joined us, but owing to a personal family problem, she could not be here. But it is more than made up. We would now like to move on to the next part of the session, which will include Nabanita talking about the making of her book, in between selves. Which are these selves? Because a lot of time when we use pronouns like I and you and we in poetry, we assume that they reflect a unified persona. But this is not always the case. As the plurality of the title asserts, in between selves, and the self could be as much the self that exists and the self that is that existed before, or the self that is being conjured into existence for the future. It could be our own selves, it could be any number of selves. So who are these selves that Nabanita is exploring? How does she feature into these fissures of the self that she has created? And what does she think of the book that she has come up with? Nabanita, to talk about all these things, I would like to invite you. Over to you.
Thank you, Vashudhara. And this is one of the most difficult tasks that I've ever been assigned in my life, to talk about my own book, and that too after Ashwani Dada, Rajorshi Dada, and Joydeep Dada, they have all spoken about it. I'm actually humbled and I am overwhelmed. Uh, I I have no word of thanks for them for sparing the time, and you've yourself been such a wonderful soul. Thanks for all the support. Thanks to Hearth Within for this entire platform. I'm really, really grateful. Even a few years back, if someone would have said that I'll have a book of poems of all by myself in my name, I wouldn't have believed it, because I don't know, this was something that gradually grew within me. It was not something that I had even thought of maybe 2 years back. So this is something that I guess happened with my association with so many fabulous poets, reading their work, interacting with them, and I'm really grateful that this happened. It's actually more like holding this book in my hand is more than a pleasure. It's an honor, and I'm overwhelmed by the kindness of all those who are present here, as audience, as speakers, as panelists, and I have no words to say how grateful I am. It's like I remember a long conversation, a WhatsApp conversation that I had once had, which stretched intermittently, but for over quite some time, with Ashwani Dada, in which he was trying to explain to me what anthropology means. And it is probably one of the best trainings that I've got in terms of writing poetry. So, and I was like amazed that a person who's so busy and who's so engaged in various kinds of activity would spare time and so much of attention for someone. I was just new in the scene then. I'm still new. Then that was like, I was even newer, in fact. And I was like, that was actually a huge learning process. And it was a conversation where like we were talking about general things, and he was trying to tell me how anthropology, poetry, and everything, these can be kind of worked together, merged together. So like if when you want me to talk about the journey of the book or the making of the book, it is actually a combination of my interactions with so many different people, of people who've been kind enough, who've been patient enough to spare their time to read my work, to comment on them, and in that I think has been very important, to get your work to be commented by someone, by a poet. That helps in the development, in the growth of the poet. And I think for this I've been really, really thankful that I've had quite a number of people to whom I could just send my poems and expect them to come up with some kind of comments on this. Rajorshi himself has been one. My friends here, Sudeshna, Averi, in fact, I would also send at times to Soumi and there have been multiple people to whom I would keep on sending my work, and they would very kindly come back with their own feedback. Professor Jonna Channel has been actually one of the earliest person who had asked me to think in terms of making a poetry anthology. And at that time, I was like, no, ma'am, this is not my cup of tea. I don't think I can do anything about it. But then eventually she did insist. And then she was also she has been my earliest critic. And she's always been there with her criticism, appreciation, suggestions, and had been a person who's been throughout with me in this journey. And I'm so glad that the painting, the cover of the book is actually a painting by her. It's one of the paintings which has been designed into a cover again by a colleague and a friend of my college, Tanmoy, who helped in designing the cover with the painting from Jarnadi. And that has, the cover itself has become very special because ma'am's painting, I had always wanted one of her paintings to be a cover for one of the books. So it becomes very special when you have these people sparing time for you, spending time for you. And then, in 2022, three of us got together, Aparna Singh, Sudeshna Chakravorty, and I. And in fact, it was at the insistence of Aparna, who said that let's work together, let's make an anthology together of our own poems. And thus, we formed a WhatsApp group, we exchanged messages, we exchanged poems, and there were sessions of video calls and Zoom. It happened throughout the pandemic period. And we named the collection as Three Witches Song. And I think that was the germination point of In-Between Selves as well. Because making of the Three Witches Song gave me the required confidence, gave me the required skill as well to think of an anthology. And that is something I think that helped me also put my poems together. Now, this book actually contains poems written over a period of around 3-4 years together, and they've been. I've just tried to put them in the same cover. But when I first started putting my poems together, it seemed a very difficult task because I was not sure which poem should go, which should not, and what should I do and what I shouldn't, and how should I go about it. The whole process was something very confusing for me. I mean, because it's not that this was the first time I'm looking at an anthology. I've been reviewing poetry anthology. I've been reviewing, I've been reading poems just for pleasure. I have stacks of poetry collection at home. But when it came to creating or preparing my own anthology, I was completely at sea. I didn't know what to do and what not to. And thankfully, Shormila Roy and Shekhar that is Shekhar Banerjee, both of them, they went through the mammoth, shapeless kind of a monster of a manuscript that I had saddled them with, and they were very kind to go through them and give their own opinions, which has finally resulted in this at least manageable kind of a book, which people will not kind of run away from, hopefully. And Ashwani Das and Rajorshi Das words gives me hope that people will not run away from this. So at least that ways I'm safe. And like that's what I was saying, that a book is never a work of your own self alone. It brings in so many people together. It's a journey that culminates finally in a book, probably, but a journey of multiple people, a journey of solidarity, of kindness, of creativity, which brings and binds souls together. That's one of the experiences that I have had while creating or while putting together the poems. And I've dedicated this book to my hostel mates. Actually, the dedication of the book, I'll just read. It reads as, to those years of living under the same roof, Mugdha, Shilpi, Gitu, and Prachi, for suffering my best and for celebrating my worst. So anyone who's been in a hostel knows what hostel mates mean, and those late night sessions of discussions, the fierce debates, and so very serious. At least we thought they were very serious and world-shattering, world-changing kind of discussions that we would have. But then all of these goes into the making of the self and the making of the mindscape, of creating a particular form of thinking. That I guess is the first stepping stone towards creation of what I am today and what I the way I think, these. So which is why when I conceptualized this book, I thought that this first book should be dedicated to these four who've actually suffered whatever nonsense I would sprout and whatever I would be speaking, so that and they would be sort of argued, agree, disagree, everything, but then we've been together in it. So this that's how this book came into being, and 41 poems from various points of time. Like, it's not even arranged chronologically. I've just tried to group them in some kind of similarity of forms. Similarity of themes, but I don't know how successful I've been in that. But it's been something that I've tried to do, sort of putting maybe the language, poems that deal with languages together, poems dealing with the social issues together. And I fully agree with you, Basu, when you mentioned that when a poet is writing, it's not just one self. It is one of the many selves and we don't even always consciously know which self overtakes. Maybe while editing, we are more conscious. But then while writing, I do not think that kind of consciousness is there. And that might which is why maybe the poems are interpreted by various readers in various ways at various points of time. And that, I also think, is the beauty of any poem. And I'm hopeful, I'm looking forward to poets reading this, readers who enjoy poetry reading the book and coming up with more critical comments, so that I can perhaps go on improving myself as a poet in my journey through the words. Thank you so much. And I'm really, really glad that the Hearth Within took this, gave me this opportunity to present this book of poem, and also to have this entire discussion, and, as you say, the celebration of the book and of the entire journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nabanita. It was a wonderful journey for us, to walk with you through the various, mental frames that you had when you were trying to bring a book into being. So yes, poems, as Nabanita has written in her introduction, they gestate differently. And sometimes they are very convincing when they come out. Sometimes we are not enough convinced, and they convince us through time of their existence, of their intention to be here despite all editing that you do. So, and also the realization that poetry is always part of a communal endeavor. It never happens alone, though there's the poet writing alone. The poetry is always coming from somewhere. And this from is the people that we engage with, the moments that we share together, the experiences that we together have. So basically, the idea of the poet as an isolated figure is all mistaken. There is no isolation in the process of experience. A bit of isolation comes, I believe, in the process of creation, in the process of writing, but unless we are part of a community, that does not come. So we are very happy, Nabanita, that your book is finally here, that you have had a wonderful community of friends supporting you, and we hope that the book will journey well into the world. And now we come to the most interesting part of our session, that is a reading of the poems that Nabanita's friends have selected, all poets themselves, and they have seen some kind of an intimacy between those poems that they have themselves chosen and the people that they themselves are. We are very glad that we have 4 people reading from the collection today. And to inaugurate this reading session, I would like to begin with Amit. Amit Shankar Saha, of course, needs no introduction. He's the author of 3 collections of poems titled Balconies of Time, Fugitive Words, and Illicit Poems. He has also published 2 non-fiction titles. He's the editor-in-chief of EKL Review and the assistant secretary of IPPL. He teaches in the Department of English at CCOM Skills University, and we are very, very glad that he could spare the time to be with us here today. Amit, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vasudhara, and thanks to the Hearth Within for giving me this opportunity, and obviously Nabanita, who is an old friend. The poem I have chosen have already been spoken by Ashwani Kumar as well as uh, Rajorshi. So I don't have much to tell about the poem, so I will straight away go to reading the poem. Love in the Times of Democracy. If love was like an election process chosen by secret ballot, and emotions wrapped in the apparent greater good, where would you and I be? Perhaps one finding poetry in heated slogans splashed across city billboards, and another in mudslinging and singing innovative abuses. Or perhaps we would have taken to streets painting walls in colors of powers to be. In the name of greater good, our hearts would beat, forgetting their actual throbs, amid rhetorics that sway 1,000 millennials and even generations preceding. Our songs would have told the highnesses above, and manifestos turned into epistles of love. But since we chose not to, can we still sing our own songs and celebrate the personal? In this polarized world of opinions, can we keep a few pages uncolored and stitch them along the streets like confetti of a lost song, in hope of a time when winds of inclusion will embrace you, me, us, they, and all in their own colorful grace? Obviously, the first thing that you notice in this poem is that use of the word but, which is like almost reminds you of Andrew Marvell's poem to his coy mistress. The use of the something like a turnaround. And obviously, I am not going to like speak about the poem because it is self-explanatory, and you all must be reading it. This is the kind of poem which she never shared with me. She will always share a poem which is not coming out perfect, and then I too will not be giving her vows about that poem. But then now when I find these kind of poems in her collection, I'll it gives me so much of pleasure that I have known her when she was brought to the Kolkata Book Fair by Professor Jhanna Sannal, and we, as she has acknowledged, Rhythm Divine Poets, and we were the Rhythm Divine Poets which Professor Sannal had invited for poetry reading at the book fair, and she was there. She had translated something of Professor Jhanna Sannal's sister Chandana Khan, and that is how we came into contact. And later on, then she joined the Rhythm Divine Poets, and that is how the Rhythm Divine Poets seduced her into writing poetry as such. But that is how fortunate we have been that we have Nabanita with us. And the other poem that I'm going to read is also a kind of poem that, like, that is how she has developed over the years. That kind of poem I may not have expected from her early on. But the poem like Black Hole, on the picture of black hole going viral, 12th April 2019. This poem, traveling light years, this dark, arresting hole reaches the earth, carrying within itself pages after pages of fascinating history of human love for the unknown. I peep into it. The image speaks through darkness, a compelling black mass of raw force, like the unleashed passion that keeps pulling us in itself. No respite, no release. Light years later, someone else will take a peek, reading romances sucked in deep, and may find many such you and me swallowed into an oblivion of no escape. This is a kind of poem where she has gone deep into astrophysics and brought it into the domain of poetry. This was quite like, like for me, it was a remarkable achievement from what I had seen Nabanita come as a novice to write this kind of poem with full of imagination and fusing registers. That kind of uh, like development I have seen in her, which is very pleasing for me. And I congratulate her for her this collection of poems, and I thank her for bringing out this collection. Thank also to Professor Joanna Shanner, who encouraged her to bring out this collection. That is all. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Amit.
Yeah.
And we need Nabanita's friends to be here. We needed them rather to be here so that these facts could come out that Nabanita never shares her perfect poems. So I'm very glad that all of us got together here. And when when I told Nabanita that she should invite friends to read, she said, friends will read their own poems, right? I said, no, they will read from your collection. And she was like, how embarrassing. How will they read from my collection? So I said, we are celebrating your book. So they'll have to read from your collection. So you invite all your best friends together. And my personal agenda, of course, was this, that all these stories should come out. And I'm glad that Amit began with the story. Thank you very much for this wonderful reading. And from Amit, we now go over to Averi, another of Nabanita's closest friends. And we hope Averi will reveal some secrets as well. So I invite Averi, who has been teaching at Kacharapara College and who has an overall interest in folklore, in poetry, and who also loves cakes extremely with extreme passion. So Averi, over to you for your wonderful reading and for some secrets if you're willing to share them.
Of course. Thank you, Vasudhara. Thank you, the Hearth Within, for celebrating Nabanita's poem. Um, Secrets, there are no more secrets, but yes, she did share her poems, a few of them with us, and for feedback. But what I liked about her poems, I have told her from the very beginning, is the melange of imagery, the wide variety of images that she uses, how she brings together a very mundane, everyday objects to create a very haunting sense, sometimes an environment that seethes with silent revolt. But and that is what I think is the magic of her words. That is her magic. That is what I like the most in her poems. And another thing that I should say is what touches me personally is a pervading sense of positivity. Be it a poem, be it a revolt, or whether she is criticizing something, but her poems always end on a note of positivity, which I like, and where I identify myself with her poems. Identify I do identify myself with her multilingual self. That is why all her language poems are very dear. And I was pretty confused whether I should choose the Metamorphosis of Tongues or the Harlequin Soul or Seeking. So then finally I said, no, I shouldn't be partial to any one of them. I'd go with the one that has appealed to me most in terms of its imagery, and that is reading. So I would go to reading. Uh, After reading a wholesome, compulsively delectable book, I ruminate words. They flock together to form ideas that spill out of me and fall like the yellow rains of a melancholic winter carrying the last dregs of cold upon its weary shoulders. They flock together to form ideas that spill out of me and fall like the yellow rains of a melancholic winter carrying the last dregs of cold upon its weary shoulders. In between words and worlds, I sift shadows, seeking the author in the whiteness of gutter, in the hard spine that lets not the words to fall apart. Center holds. The spine does. Pages, they seduce you deeper and deeper, suck you into the whirlpool of sistine colors, bind you to the Mughal lattices till you turn into lotus eater. Ideas sprout, green branches shooting out of the cranium, spread far and wide. The book develops roots, shoots, and leafy branches, and its words travel along the sneaky alleys, forming a network of cerebrums. The book finds its life. Unlike Shelley's monster, it travels to find homes in many lands, multiple minds. I just love this. Thank you, Nabanita, for writing this. And the next poem is a tribute to Nabanita's witchy self. So that is called The Witch. They said, ugly, pointing at the skin, its corrugated patterns across my once smooth face. They called me witch. That fiery liquid added unearthly look to the eyes, pushing them out of sockets. I was the Opoya, the bringer of ill luck. My face haunted the chicken-hearted society of my birth. While the river mourned the corpses it bore, I mourned the dying human race shredding into bits its nurtured facade. Its claws and teeth bared upon my face. The witch, the Opoya, tore apart the thin veil between love and desire. Not blood, now acid flows burning myths of the superior race. Shattered pieces of illusory world make my dreams, mock my belief. I gather pieces and stand again. Nature's courage never lets me give up. As I said, there is always a sense of pervading positivity. So I love the last two lines. I gather pieces and stand again. Nature's courage never lets me give up. Thank you.
Thank you, Averi. Thank you for choosing those special poems and for reading them. Thank you very much. And from Averi, we move over to Soumi. Soumi Duttagupta is former clinical research professional. She now works with adults and children to build self-community and environmental consciousness through her venture named Regnesis. She also loves to indulge in scribbling her random thoughts, some of which are published in various e-magazines. She's the happiest exploring Tagore's lyrics through Odisse's lyricism as a trained Odissi dancer. She also loves narrating dance ensembles as a sutradhar. Shomi, we are very, very happy that you found time to be with us this evening, and over to you for your reading of Nabanita's poems. Shomi, you are muted.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vasudhara. Thank you, Nabanita. And today, as I hold this book, two strong feelings are predominant at this present moment. One is pride, and the second is pleasure. Yes, I'm proud of you, Nabanita, and it's an immense pleasure, and I feel humbled to be a part of this beautiful program. As I traverse through the spaces between selves, I was fascinated by the way Nabanita have painted the varied landscapes of her, or should I say our, being or existence. And I felt between the selves, through between the selves, Nabanita has reiterated that lives are not monolithic, rather a tapestry woven through different threads, various shades of threads of different identities, experiences, and emotions. And through her innate poetic prose, which is growing by the day, she has artfully articulated the unspoken and unveiled the layers of authentic self, and at times the vulnerable selves. And finally, I would just love to see that I felt the beauty of each piece of this collection lies in the fact that along with her, I, as a reader, have also navigated through the uncharted space that lies within the nuances of my story, myself. Wonderful read. Congratulations again, Nabanita. And so it was very difficult for me to choose which one to read because every poem is written with such finesse. So finally, I selected two, and here I go. Spaces. In the space between words lies thoughts. How much effort does it take to move from one to the next? The white space carries the burden of it all. Craziness, idiosyncrasies, uncertainties, insecurities, mark of gender disparities, sweat of an artist, and an inner call. These spaces are pauses, too active to seen, too fragile to be shared. And in the pause are born the words that speak much more than the obvious. In between lie 1,000 journeys, folded within the unrevealed. What unsaid weighs more than those black marks upon white, drudgery of penning camouflaged in the flourishing letters unconfined. Wonderful, Nabanita. And the second one is Dusk. Those evening of long poems, you and I, face to face, and the slowly setting sun. Madhubilata fragranced dusk and the dark hills slowly receding into the folds of night. Your wrinkles quivered with each word, and furrows deepened as remembrance became difficult each passing year. When starry periwinkle compete with Chinese roses in my garden today, I remember our mornings of misty walks and flower baskets, and my little hand safely tucked in your warm fist. Today, failing sight seeks refuge in my arms, now grown big. You once had held me, cradled restive nights in your lap. Love unconditional, your first lesson. No school books could have guided better. Can I wake the nights like you? Can I walk that full road now? Cup in my palms, your gummy smile. Heartwarming.
Thank you, Shobhi, for that very, very lyrical reading of Nabanita's poems. Thank you very much. And from Shomi, we now move over to Sudeshna. Dr. Sudeshna Chakravorty is currently Assistant Professor and Head of Department of English at Sushil Kar College, affiliated to Calcutta University. She also serves as a guest faculty in the postgraduate section of the Departments of English at Lady Brabourne College and St. Paul's Mission College, St. Paul Cathedral's Mission College, Kolkata. Her areas of interest include gender studies, folklore and culture studies, and she continues to be involved in research and academic activities. She's also a very well-known poet and has co-authored along with Nabanita and Aparna the Three Witches song. We are very happy that Sudeshna could be here with us today. And Sudeshna, over to you for your perspective of the poems and the reading.
Thank you, Vasudhara. Thank you, the Heart Within, for this opportunity. And thank you, Nabanita. Yes, as Rajoshida said, that when you are used to calling her by a completely different name, suddenly going all official on these platforms is very difficult. But thank you, Nabanita, for this wonderful book, which is bringing all of us together. Because the one word that really warmed my heart when I received Vasudhara's mail was a celebration. That is what I would like to hold on to. This is not those formal words of a launch and all of that. Yes, maybe, but such stalwarts as Ashwani sir taking time out here, Joydipta, and all others, Rajorshida, Amit, everybody here. We are here, I think, out of a combined love for poetry and for the poet, our dear friend. And the community feeling that everyone was talking about, that Nabanita herself said, Vasudhara pointed out, that the creative process might be a lonely one, but the germination, the entire process of poetry is not a lonely job. And that is where I guess the friends come in, because we have had all those conversations, Averi, me, Aparna, with Nabanita, uh, many of which we can see here. In in one of her poems, she says that paleontologists find fossils of old stories. The privilege of friends is to see old stories in very, very vibrant and beautiful forms like these poems. So not spilling any secrets, because that is the responsibility of friends to hold on to precious memories. So no secrets to spill, but definitely that determined the choice of my poems. The first one that I chose for today was ownership. Not ownership in any kind of a copyright battle sense, but ownership of companionship that I have been lucky to share with the poet who I consider to be one of my closest friends. So, ownership. For some verses, I claim ownership, not as a creator, nor an editor, or even as their chronicler, just a simple reader who had breathed in once those words and made them own, who had set them free from the limitations of the poet's pen and gave them new wings, a different pair each time, as the day may be, and a new lease of life in fresh and crisp avatars of meaning, in concentric circles of reading and rereading in an encore, and again finding in them an anchor in a city of fleeting nests and overcrowding memories. So, a different pair of wings every time I have read the poems, which is why I loved this one. And those who know me to be quite a combative person. So the next poem is something that resonated with the way I uh, think of the poetic process, a war of words. Till your words bleed, do not write. Let them go deep inside, twist like the blade of a carving knife, and wrench out humanity buried deep in your guts. Let them peel your eyes open, dismantling your ability to shut the world out with a swipe of lashes. Let them rebound from wall to wall within sterile, air conditioned meeting rooms and futile exchanges of inadequate words. Wait till the words arm themselves with enough anger, regurgitating with a violence strong enough to face the world, and then unleash. Make them ammunition of those poor souls who live where words control arms and minds, and of those scared souls whose lives hang by a thread of whim of a tyrant king, whose each day is darker than the night. And then let words take charge. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudeshna. That was such a lovely poem to conclude the session with. And we are very, very happy that Nabanita's book is in the world now. In-Between Selves is amongst us for everyone to read, to relate to learn, and to bring this gathering to a formal conclusion. I would have liked to invite Jaideep sir if he's around. I think he is not here. So he was
No,
just reaching
he had to
out.
leave. He
Yeah,
said, sorry
yeah.
for interrupting, but he said that he has to leave some urgent things to
Yes,
attend to.
yes, yes, probably. Yes. And so I would have liked him to conclude the session. But since probably, yes, he might have had some network problem also since he told us that he was traveling. But we have come to the conclusion of a very, very beautiful session. Uh, Particularly now that we are at the end, I would like to mention that I loved the book cover very much. I loved the associations that the cover raised between the poems and the kind of emotive, the symbolic, the symbolic emotions that it represents. So I see it also as a Radha Krishna motif. I see it as, the motif of love. I love the combination of earth colors, the sky and the earth, the very muted, cover of a book. And I also love the way in which a kind of play takes place. The idea of gender could be related to the figures and also to the poems that Nabanita has in her collection. So there's a kind of fluidity, there's a kind of serenity, there's a kind of metaphysics that has already been pointed out by both Rajorshi and Ashwani sir. So we hope that this book, which appears to be a very compact ensemble of love, of emotions, and also of, as Rajoshida said, that poets can never be on the right side, so they must be on the left or they must be on the wrong side. So the very political way in which you have woven together the personal emotions, the coming together of the personal and the political, has long been a feminist concern. And I believe that with every book in which this concern is accomplished, we are only moving forward towards the goal of reclaiming a language of our own. So celebrations for Nabanita's book. I think Hearth Within has been calling all gatherings, all events celebrations instead of book launches or things like that. Because at the end of the day, I think that is all that we are left with. We are left with celebrations, and there's no point when people are no longer there. We have fast been losing a number of our poets in the Indian poetry scene, and when people are no longer there, talking about them and organizing functions or seminars or memorials on them does not mean much. So I think it is time that we celebrated them as long as they are there with us. So we are very glad that we also celebrated Jayantoda's Noon, though he could not actually join us even for the virtual launch, but he saw the entire recording at his own pace later on. And so we have that solace that we celebrated Jayantoda's Noon. We, of course, could not do anything we thought that we would celebrate, Giv Patel's receipt of the Tata Literary Award. We had thought of that, but we could not just get the program together. So I think that as long as the poets are around us, they are healthy, they are happy, they are alive, they are talking about their works, it is time. And also because we keep recording, so I think it's also a good way of archiving, all that was discussed during every session. So this will also hopefully be rich archival material for scholars who might want to go back to these books down the years, some years down the line. There may be people who will be consulting these recordings to find out what was spoken about the book when the book was, introduced to the world. So we hope that these celebrations continue, and these celebrations could never happen but for your support. We're very grateful to everyone who could make time to be with us. Ashwani sir has always been a great source of support. We have also celebrated this year Rivers Going Home, and I know that Ashwani sir's new collection of poems is it must be on its way out into the world. So definitely 2024 should be our time to celebrate another of Ashwani sir's books. So it has been in the making for a long time, Ashwani sir. No, you cannot say no. You cannot say no. So this is the year-end homework that is being given to you, and this year-end homework has to yield results. So the Hearth Within will already announce the celebration of your forthcoming book, even though the cover is not revealed. So that is one of our projects in 2024. So we look forward to this wonderful, to such wonderful gatherings again and again. Thank you very much for being with all of us. Thank you, Nabanita, and may your book travel happy and well throughout, this new year that is coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vasudhara, for everything. And you've been a warm soul from the day one that I've met you, at least